Africa, we can never reach to a point where we claim to be fully democratic. My name is Laura Kaluli, and I'll be your host here today at Bluntly Candid Podcast. Our co-host today is a political analyst and the CEO of Bringing Hope organization. As I've read by the title, our topic of discussion today is, should African countries be fully democratic? Let's get straight to the discussion. Welcome to Bluntly Candid Podcast. Would you kindly tell us your name and introduce us? Tell us more about yourself.
My name is Karoli Okelo. I'm a student from Maseno University, taking a course in political science with IT. So about myself, I don't have much to say, but I can also say that I'm a politician. I love politics. And also beside politics, I run an organization by the name Bringing Hope, community-based organization. Yeah.
All right. On that note, would you tell us more about Bringing Hope organization and what motivated you to start the organization?
Basically, Bringing Up organization is an organization that deals with the support of girl child. We offer sanitary towels to the girl child. We also do, we pay fee to the vulnerable girl child in the society. And also we offer mental health awareness, because in the world of today, you find the challenges, stress, depression. So there are girls outside there who you find them, some of them got pregnant, but because of that, some of them got stressed. They cannot continue with the academics. So Bringing Hope comes in to give hope to such kind of people. And also, apart from that, we also improve the talents. This year, during the end year of 2024, we are planning, or in the process, we are going to have a India tournament that is going to focus on girls. At least we are going to give them the opportunity to showcase their talents. We are also going to give them the opportunity for interacting with other people, because they are connecting with the other organization. So at least we come together. So through that participation, they can get a chance to, that capacity building. Yeah.
That's interesting. You mentioned You mentioned you love politics and
Yes.
you introduced yourself as a politician.
Yes.
Where did that interest of politics and you also said you study political science.
Yes.
So where did that interest come from, or where does that interest resonate from?
Okay. My interest in politics, I realized that I have interest in politics when I joined campus. Basically, when I was in high school, I managed to be a leader right away from Form 1 to Form 4, but I never knew that I might be influential maybe in another field, now the outside politics. Because when I joined my high school, I was a class representative in Form 1, Form 2. Then when it reached Form 3, I was one person with the 3 dockets. That was the CU chairperson. I was the laboratory prefect, and also I was the head boy. Now, coming to Form 4, the same. I was the head boy, I was the laboratory prefect, and I was the CU chairperson. So when I got a chance to study political science in Maseno, that passion developed. And through coming up with Bringing Hope, I got to meet politicians. So I started working with them, and that is how that passion developed. So the theory part I study in class, then there is also the practical one on the grounds. Basically, I do it in Siaya. Yeah.
That's interesting. So would you mind, this is actually besides the topic, but would you mind telling us any favorite childhood memory that you have?
My childhood memory. I just think that when I was young, I was stubborn. Yes, most stubborn.
Explains why you chose politics and leadership.
Okay. When we grow as young people, you grow. The behaviors maybe you might have them when you're young, but you find yourself when you grow, you shed off some behaviors.
Okay.
Now, leadership to me, okay, one of the things in political socialization in a unit we studied, I think in your year 1, we learned various reasons why people participate in politics. Number 1, you find some participate in politics because they love politics. Some participate in politics because of power. Some participate in politics because of greed. So may participate in politics because I love it. When I see the community, when I see citizens, they gather around celebrating a politics, I just find it, and it's just an urge. And also me, I feel good when also a time comes when the same thing will happen to me. Yeah, so that's the reason why my interest in politics.
In leadership.
Yeah.
Okay, enough of the tete-a-tete. So let's get to today's topic discussion.
Thank you.
So allow me ask you your overall overview of today's topic discussion, which is, should African countries become fully democratic? Do you think African countries will ever be fully democratic?
In my view, I don't think that African state will be fully democratic. Yeah, that is my take.
Your overall take. So
Yeah.
allow me ask, what are your reasons? Why do you think African countries can never be fully democratic?
My reasons are, I have many reasons, but even to a young person, if you watch things that happen in Africa, you can take an example that what is happening in our country, Kenya. You look at what's happening in Uganda. You look what's happening in Nigeria. You look what's happening in South Sudan. You see the president coming up to extend the election term limit that we will elect. We'll have the general election maybe next year or maybe after some 4 years. And when we understand the term democracy, and then Abraham Lincoln defines democracy as the government of the people by the one for the people. Now, it means democracy is the power politics, that the entity that is created as the government, it is to the interest of the people. So when you find an head of state coming to a point that saying we cannot have an election, then it means we don't have democracy. You can see the electoral process that happens across Africa. For instance, in Kenya, you can see what has been happening, maybe the 2007. What the common wananchi thinks is not what they get. You elect a leader, but the system elects itself. Yeah. So that is why I'm saying we are not fully democratic, and I don't see if we are heading there.
So you've mentioned that leaders, or rather the system, basically, in a nutshell, is rigged. So in Africa, we can never reach to a point where we claim to be fully democratic because the system is rigged. So what therefore should upcoming leaders, allow me to use the word upcoming, what therefore should upcoming leaders, for instance, people like you, do different to ensure that Africa is fully democratic?
Concerning that issue, before I give a clear answer on that, allow me to take you back a bit. We need to understand that there was something we call colonization. Like Kenya, you have colonial masters, So you find that the colonial masters sometimes they tend to manipulate our elections. We are like slaves in our own land. That if we have a person, but the ideology doesn't match with the ideology, then you cannot lead. And they will do anything possible best to make sure that the person who fits the ideology will win the seat. Now, I want to give you an instance in Nigeria. The last election where we were having Tinubu and Peter Obi, these were two different politicians running for the same office. And Nigeria is almost over 200 million people. Now, you find everybody knew that Peter Obi was going to win the election. And people are saying that, oh, it is a time we are going to see changes in government, corruption, we are going to fight corruption. But to some, were saying that Peter Obi was not going to win. And if you could see how Tinubu was going to this African, the outside world, USA seeking the support, and you find the USA are also supporting him. To me, we are being given leaders who are not of our choice. The leaders we see that runs the government is not our choice. It is the choice of the outside world. It is the choice of those developed states. Now, as we have young leaders, the fear I have, even me as myself as a politician, it is because when you grow up as a politician, you will also go to the same footstep. Because the leaders who tried to change, you can see the likes of Kwame Nkrumah, when they were advocating for one united Africa, he was overthrown from the government. Some of them were being killed. You can see the Muammar Gaddafi, when it was advocating for one Africa so that we can use one currency. He was killed. So you see, as we grow, one thing we have to understand is that we need to have one Africa that speaks one voice. We need to be united. The leaders who are coming up in political sphere need to be united. And this is not only in Kenya, but across Africa. That when we meet someone in Mozambique, then we need to say one voice. When we go to Uganda, we need to say one voice. But the problem we have with these people is that the people who are sitting in those offices are always looking at their stomach. You find somebody in Africa, like the meetings, like the other time they were in, let me just say the General Assembly, just last week. You never know what these people, when you meet a president, you never know what they're saying. The African head of state meets at one point, unaambiwa, we need this thing to be done, then you mention your price. So that pace. But if we can call a united Africa, then we can really change a lot and stand on our ground. That we need to know that if it is democratic, what does it mean? Our leaders must define that democracy. Then from there, we can set the space for democracy in Africa.
That's interesting. So you've alluded that our leaders need to set the pace.
Yeah.
So in regards to that, do you think the Western idea of democracy can work in Africa, like the Western idea of democracy? Because we're told democracy is government for the people, by the people, by Lincoln. But when you look at it, let's say, for instance, in Africa, we are developing countries. We have different, or rather, we have other priorities to handle. Democracy, when you look at Africa, is very expensive. Elections, we spend a lot of money in an election, yet we have higher illiteracy levels in our continent. Sorry, yet we have poverty levels are very, very high in our country. So do we have, like, first question is, will the West idea of democracy work for us as Africa? And then, do you think we have other priorities to focus on as a country, as a continent, other than investing more money in ensuring the democratic processes are followed?
I think as a political scholar, I don't advocate for democracy.
Okay, interesting.
Because the people you say that are proponents of democracy, like the United States of America, they are not democratic in Africa. Because if they could be democratic, then they could allow us do what democracy wants. You get me?
Yeah.
Now, the reason why I'm saying that the US, particularly looking at the United States of America, an example is the International Criminal Court of Justice. You find leaders, it is only a court for African leaders, but it is not a court for the developed states. You will never in your life, like a case happens that you see now President Trump or Biden is going to be executed in the International Criminal Court of Justice. Now, these people, they tell us that we need democracy. But do we really need democracy in Africa? Because, for instance, the reason why I'm saying I can't advocate for democracy, look at China, for example. China is not democratic, but China is more developed. And China is an Asian country. There is education in China, which is almost free. There is mobility of labor is so high. Free healthcare, electricity, bills are low. But there is not a democratic state. I think Africa, we need to be left alone. So at least we can set our pace. Because USA will tell you that for you to be democratic, we must have so many parties that we don't need. For instance, in Kenya, we almost have over 36 political parties vote for. In USA, we almost have two major political parties. That's the Republican and the Democrat. That if you're a Democratic Party, you be a Democrat. But in Kenya, you find we have got ODM, we have the UDA, we have the DAP, we have Wiper. So we are dividing our own people based in different ideologies, because the Wiper party has its own policy, the ODM the same, the UDA the same. Now, in Africa, we find, like in Kenya, we have almost over 50 million people, and we have almost over 36 million, the 36, no, sorry, 36 political parties. Now, these people, some of them are illiterate. How will they understand the ideologies of these political parties? Our education level is low. What we need to do is we need to tell the West that it is time you stop. Because you cannot advocate for democracy and you're the same people who are not following democracy. Because things that happen in Africa, that like in Congo during the time of Samora Machel, they killed, these people were being killed. The Pio Lumumba, these people were being killed. Why? Because they were standing for one Africa. Gaddafi was killed as a result of the US. Now, if you can, somebody can ask you then, what during the time of Colonel Muammar Gaddafi, Libya had everything. There was free schools, there was free healthcare, there was free water, free electricity, free education. But they came and said that this guy was a terrorist. So they are undermining the right to live, and they're the same people who enshrine this, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that we have a right to stay. And they're the same people who are killing our own people in the name of that we are going to put democracy. Yeah. So my advice is that we need to tell the West to stay away from Africa. Then as Africans, we need to know what is best for us. Me personally, like in Kenya, I can advocate for uh, a state where a communist state. The reason why I'm saying a communist state is because look at the election times in Kenya. 5 years sometimes, 5 years, after every 5 years, Kenyans will go for election. Now, after every 5 years, we have the president. We have President Moi was there after his 10 years. A new president comes in. Now, what about the unfinished project that President Moi started? Who will accomplish? Now, Kibaki comes in with his tenure, because there was also complete projects, because a new president coming in wants to start with his own project. So to me, we can never develop. Because when you come in, you leave your unfinished project. I come in, I leave my unfinished project. So how will we develop as a nation? But what if you have one leader that there is free education? We have a free healthcare. We have free water. But now the president said that a central part of symbol of unity. Now he directs, but with his own people, we can have direction.
That's interesting. So you've said Africa needs to have African solutions to African problems, basically. But are we financially capable as a continent to be like, you know what, if the West stay there, let us handle our own issues with our own solutions? Are we financially capable to handle our own issues? Because when you look at it, let's take an example of elections. The West tend to fund some of our elections. Allegedly, they tend to fund some of our elections. So if we tell them, stay away from our elections and stay away from our continent, let us handle our own issues our own way, that means they will go away with their funding. So are we financially capable as a continent to be independent without the West's interference, or rather without the West's involvement in our political issues?
Now, have you asked yourself why some Western companies always run to African countries to set their companies?
That's
Like you
interesting.
find they come, they set up their companies in African states. Africans are rich, but because of ignorance, we are not rich. That's my take. You find, let me use an example of Congo. Congo is the richest state in Africa, because if you want platinum, you find it in Congo. When you want diamond, you find it in Congo. When you want gold, you find it in Congo. So, can you tell me that Congo is not rich? Check South Africa, the White Waters Land. What happens there? Purely gold mining. And South Africa is one of the leading exporters of gold to the outside world. Now tell me, if Congo decides now that we want now to sell our gold, we set the policy that now you buy from us. Now we do away with the middleman. Can't we be rich? Now, how much does it cost to run an election in Kenya? Like you say that, or maybe we cannot run an election in Kenya. Were we financially capable? Africans, we are financially capable, but corruption makes us weak. Like the last election, it was revealed that the US supported the Kenya's election with almost over 2 billion Kenyan shillings. But you find this money, if you, it cannot be accounted for. You find. So if Africans, we as Africans, we can decide to work on our own. Let we say that let us our raw materials be used. Let us use our raw materials to produce our own money. You will find that we will be stable because in Kenya, we have the power to export our own sugar. We have areas in Kenya that have got that we call it favorable climate for growing of sugarcane. The same to maize, the same to beans. We export even our coffee at a low price, then we import it at a higher price. So who is fooling who? And then we come and say, our leaders say that we are not capable. We are capable. The problem we have is our leaders who are there to, who are there just they want to maybe. Let me just say it is just greed. Yeah, because like Mount Kenya, we have the coffee is there. You find people are fighting over this. We exported the board like the other time. You see, the CS Paranya was firing all coffee board members. It is because of corruption. The farmers are working hard. If this cash crops goes abroad, they expect little payment. But when now you go import it, it is at higher. So to me, they have the established companies, but us, we send it over there, then they manufacture it for us. Are we not capable of creating our own companies? Why can the government create policies that can allow every Kenyan citizen to create a company? We have people who are good in investment, but why is the government only opening doors for outsiders? That if it is this, we call in Wahindis, which is not bad. We welcome them, but because we are a liberal state. But what happens to the a citizen of that state? If I can be given a chance to run a company, but the government now sets, we call it a tax that cannot affect my business, then I can create money. And also, when I create money, the government creates money because I'll be paying tax to the government. If we can empower our own people, if we can create jobs for own people, apart from running abroad, we have the resources. And that view, the idea that we have that huko ndio kuna maziwa, you find so many people are running away so that work labor force huku chini, it reduces. When it reduces, we cannot create more. When we cannot produce more, we cannot have our own money. But Africa, as it stands, we are not capable for handling maybe an election. But with the time, if we have got leaders who are visionary leaders, then we can be able to finance everything.
Brain drain, you mean, when you talked about exporting labor. So in regards to your point where you said that our leaders are like we have poor leadership basically in Africa as a continent. Yes. So what then should we as young people do to ensure that in the future as a continent we have a competent leadership that will be able to, because I believe the problem is not policies, because we have policies. The problem is the implementation of these policies. So what therefore should we do as young people to ensure that in future we have leaders up there who are willing to implement these policies and overlook the Western influence? Because at the end of the day, these policies are there, but if it's not favoring some of the Western countries, they're going to interfere with those policies to ensure they're not implemented. So what should we do as young people to ensure that leaders who are upcoming, or rather our future leaders, put our interest before their own personal interests?
I think when we want competent leaders, maybe in the future, to me, I don't think it will just be an easy walk on the park, because when you decided to, maybe let me use Kenya as an example, that we want a structured leadership. Now, if you want to know that we are really behind, look at what happened during the Gen Z movement in Kenya. Because if at all the government can listen to the voice of the young people, then we can have a change. And we can push that competency. But because they say that politics is for the few, and it is power politics. The Gen Z movement they were saying that it was as a result of poor leadership. But you find at the end of the day, some small group of people benefited. These people are not able to leave this post. These offices, they are not able. If we want ourselves to be or to create competence in leadership, then it must start with us. It must start with your character, your behavior. Because someone who is a thief gets a chance, a youth who is a thief gets a chance to be in a presidential office. You can't tell me he will change or she will change. The character will continue. When this guy is called in an international forum that, oh, we want to come in Kenya, we want to build maybe we want a company, then we are offering you 1 billion. Tell me, how much?
Of course not.
So we must change our behavior. We are going to school, but we can't understand what school needs to change on us. We need to see the problems, but will be the solution. We graduate students each and every year, but we cannot see a change. It is because those people who are interested in political power have their own interest. And when we were sitting, I said something that in political sociology, the reason why people participate in politics, the people who pursue that office, you cannot know why. It is for me who knows why am I engaging in politics. So if you find someone who is engaging in politics to make money, then he will use money to get that money.
Sure.
You find someone who is just greed, wants power, he will try all his tactics to get that power. Now, this kind of people, if they get a chance to occupy these offices, then we are not safe. So as young people growing, we have to change our behaviors. Not only in Kenya, but across Africa. But we need civic education. We need to say, we need this, not even this. But if at all we could have the people, the past, our ancestor who fought for us, the likes of Kwame Nkrumah, the likes of P.L. Lumumba, coming to Kenya, you get people like Tom Mboya, those were assassinated just because of political. It was a political assassination. Why? Because the kind of brains they had, you could not compare with the one we have today. So it is us we have to change, then we can change the better part of the world. Africa needs leaders who are visionary, young people who can advocate for change, but not people who are going to political field because of their stomach. That we won't change. So if you want to see a competent leadership, if you want to see a visionary leaders, it must change with us. It must come from us. That I have changed and I want to do this and you'll do. Not that I want to do this, but when you reach there, you find you're being given some money, now you're back.
That's interesting. So, just to take you back for a minute, at some point you said you are again. Okay, let me use the right word. At some point you said you're not pro-democracy, right? Mm-hmm. So, just to get you clearly, you said as a continent we should just embrace, let's say, one leader who rules for for as long as, I mean, to quote you, he wants, as long as he puts the interests of its citizens first, right? But don't you think if we go that route, considering the poor leadership we have in Africa, politics will attract leaders who have selfish interest more than the interests of its citizens? Because if someone let's take an example of what is the president of Uganda. He's been in power since, I don't know, 1970 something. So compare Uganda and, let's say, Kenya. Kenya is a democratic country. Compare Uganda and Kenya in terms of development, in terms of the economic growth and all that. don't you think democracy brings more positive influence to a country than the negative influence?
Okay. Let me pose a question.
Okay.
Why do you elect leaders? Number one, we elect leaders for better infrastructure. We elect leaders for better healthcare. We elect leaders to fight corruption, right? We elect leaders because we want food. We elect leaders because we want free education. Now, what else can you need if you find this in one leader? I said the problem we have in Africa is that the leaders we have they are being driven by greed of power and also to make money. Uganda, Museveni is more so a dictator, if I may quote. Now, how do you want a dictator who is driven by greed to give you better healthcare, to give you better roads? But what if we have a leader who doesn't consider his greed, but can deliver to you that when you go to hospital, you can get drugs. When you go to schools, you can't pay fee. When you look for that job, you get it. When you go to the roads, we have got better infrastructure. And that's the reason why I am saying we need to see what is happening in China. We can't say that China there is no corruption, but somehow there is. There is no state without no corruption. And even
Sure.
the United States, you can say there's no corruption. There is corruption, but in China, you will find better infrastructure development. You will find better policies for agriculture. You will find free education system, free healthcare system, electricity. So that's the reason why I was saying the personality of a leader, the behavior of a leader is what matters. What Museveni is doing in Uganda portrays a leader with greed. Because one, they say that Uganda is democratic, but Museveni is almost dying in power. At least in Kenya, we can look at what was happening in South Sudan, that the president has the power to push the election ahead, that we don't have money to prepare for elections.
Yeah.
And the truth is, we have, and if you can see the age of that president, you just have a sympathy for him. So if we can find all these basicness that we need in one leader, then I think we are good to go. Because once you have your job, what else will you need from the government? You have your security, you have water, you have better health care, your children are going to school, you are all the policies that are bigger, even your house, you are free. You have money to take care of you. What else will you need from the government? That stop waste that we cannot we stop wasting of money that every we spend billions and billions. These billions can be invested in better healthcare. These millions can be invested in infrastructure development. These billions can be invested in schools so that our people can go to school. So me, I think if we can get all these in one leader, then we are good to go. But we must change in our personality.
All right. So, what's your final take on our topic today, which is should African countries be fully democratic, or rather, will they ever be fully democratic? I know those are two different questions. You can choose to answer one, or you can choose to answer both. Your final take on that.
Um, I will still I will still stand with my what I said that African states are not democratic. And I say the line, if you check at the line of election, our elections are not democratic. The policies sometimes the government creates are not democratic. Like in Kenya, you can see there are several policies of the government that are stuck in courts. Why? Because they didn't involve the public. So it is not democracy. In courts, our courts, there is what we call constitutional democracy and the legal right democracy. It doesn't happen in our courts. The power doesn't favor the weak; it favors those with the power. So things that happen in Africa tells you that we are not democratic.
Should we become fully democratic as a continent, or democracy has more pros than cons?
I think when you check the United States in a bit, at least we can say that there is element of democracy, because you can see they don't see you. You are not above the law. Whether you commit a crime, whether you're a president or you're not, you're going to be jailed. So I think Africans, if they want to be democratic, they should see some develop certain what they do with their leaders. Because take an example of what happened uh, with this who was it? This inspector of police Masengeli,
Masengele, yeah.
refusing a court order almost 7 times. But what could be if it was a mere citizen?
Yeah.
But what about in the United States? You cannot do that. Even you can even seize Trump was the head of state, but in courts, when the court summons him, he was punctual. This democracy and respect of power. But this one of ours,
So Africa should have African solution to African
yeah,
problems.
we need to have solve our problems alone. We need not to engage the third party, because when you engage the third party, there are many things that can. Because I'll come to help you, but when I'm coming to help you, I'll need other things.
Yeah, you have your own interests as a state.
Africans should consolidate their minerals so that we can create one united Africa. We create our own money, like what was the SADC thing was coming to. Was it the one that the President Ruto and this one of Rwanda, Kagame, were trying to fight for, so that we have maybe one currency.
One currency,
yeah. So at least we can bargain. Yes. So that we can have one united Africa, we must consolidate our mineral resource. We need to have our companies. We need to prevent the West from tampering with our elections. They need to allow a system that is free and fair, so that citizens can elect their own leaders, their choice, not people that are being imposed. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Caroli, for gracing our screens today. And guys, there you go. So let me leave this question to you. Should African countries be fully democratic? What's your take? Let's engage at the comment section.